happy to be back in Newcastle. Although every time I see the name of the conference, it makes me a little nervous. I think, am I thinking digital? And then I think, okay, well, I'm always worried. I'm a dictionary editor. I always think, well, what does that mean? Like, what is thinking digital? Because I'm a dictionary editor, I worry about what everything means. And so when people are curious about something, they wonder about something, in the modern age, they do this, right? They look it up. So I was like, okay, well, how do I think? Okay, well, there's no really good suggestion there. Or, oh, no, I don't want that at all. I thought, well, maybe I'm just not asking the question correctly to the modern oracle. So I thought maybe I need to ask an internetese. It's an internet search engine. And so this made me, this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately because search is such a fantastic tool. But like every tool, like every hammer, when you have a really good hammer, everything looks like a nail. And search is the cookie cutter that forces all questions into the shape of search. And I realized that for as long as people have been thinking digitally, maybe the last quarter century or so, when we've really been thinking about what it means to think digitally, what we're really talking about when we're talking about thinking digitally is we're thinking digitized, right? Let's get everything digital. Let's throw it up and let's just let the search engines sort it out. And this is a great idea, right? The promise is that you can get everything you want right now. Type it into the little box and you get what you want. And this has been a dream of people who have been interested in information and technology for a really long time. Like this dude, Vannevar Bush, right? So he had this idea in the 40s about the Memex, right? You were going to be able to take everything that you knew and basically put it in a combination Rolodex card catalog. And it would associate ideas for you because he was really concerned about the problem of, how do you keep up? How do you keep up? And this was in the 1940s, right? When we think of as this bucolic time of information. We had the atom bomb, that was about it. We didn't really have that much information comparatively. And he also thought that there would be a new job, that there would be these trailblazers whose job would be to kind of wander through the data and blaze the trail, show you which way you should go to find out the things that you wanted to know. And so I think that we have internalized this idea now that looking for needles in haystacks is not a big deal anymore, right? You type into the little box and the needle will appear. But this, maybe this presupposes not only the existence of the haystack, which we're all building all the time, let's digitize everything, but it also presupposes that we know what a needle is, right? And we know that we want one. Now, search is triumphant, right? That's trillions Google searches per year. Look how it's grown. But the rate of growth of search, I think we may have reached peak search, right? Look at that. In what, 2006? 70%, nearly 70%. It was growing. The volume of searches was growing year over year. But now, not so much. We're not doing as many more searches as we used to. And I think, in part, it might be due to this problem. Too much information, right? You might have the same searches that you do over and over again, because it's easier. You don't have to remember certain things. You just type it into the box. And having all this information digitized, maybe we've digitized so much that the thrill is gone. And having a convenient place to go and look for everything, it leads to the streetlight problem. Y'all know what the streetlight problem is? Okay, so there's a cop, right? And he sees a guy, and he's looking around on the ground under the streetlight. He says, dude, can I help you? He's a California cop, that's why he says dude. And the guy goes, yeah, I'm looking for my keys. And they look for a while, and the policeman looks at the guy who's really drunk. And he says, did you lose him here? And he's like, no, I lost him in the park, but this is where the light is. When a lot of times, we search not necessarily because that's where we think the information lives, but because that's where the light is. It's just easier. And you know, most of the time we get a reasonable answer. We're thankful. Anybody who grew up in the era of actually having to call human beings on the telephone to find something out, we never want to go back to that time again. You know, phones are for texting, right? We should just be thankful. And if we don't get what we think we want to get, well, then the answer is very simple, right? Let's ask more questions. And there's really nothing wrong with asking questions. I think people should ask many more questions than they currently do. And as we saw earlier today, asking questions wins Jeopardy and cures cancer. You know, what could be wrong with that? You know, we saw Watson earlier today. I really liked that talk. But the problem with encouraging people to ask more questions is that sometimes we don't know what questions to ask. We're kind of going about our days, doing the things that we normally do, and there are probably 1,000 opportunities in every minute where we could ask a question, but you know, we want to go have lunch. You know, we've got a report due in an hour. We've got to pick our kids up from school. We might not have the time to articulate what we're curious about or what we might really need to know. So how do we know what we need to know but don't know that we need to know it? Now, this is not a new problem. This is a very old problem. So how will you go about finding the thing, the nature of which is totally unknown to you? He was talking about virtue. Like, if you don't know what virtue is, how do you know it when you see it? It's not like pornography where you do know it when you see it. This is from one of Plato's dialogues with Socrates, and my grasp of Socratic theory is limited, ironically, to the Socratic question. But Socrates, I think, thought that everybody knew everything already at birth and you had just forgotten it, so it was really just a matter of being reminded, which I have no opinion on. But, you know, this is a question that has been asked over and over again. So, you know, this guy was talking about the British Library. He was like, if it be wanted, it can be asked for, but to be wanted, it must be known. If you don't know that something exists, how do you search for it? And he said that nobody can rummage the library, that the British Library, you couldn't just kind of go in and wander around. And this is a problem that has been restated over and over again. I don't know whether I should give a trigger warning for this next slide. But so this is a very famous formulation of this problem. You know, there are unknown unknowns. There are things that you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know them. And, you know, even a stopped clock, right, is right twice a day. Or I guess on military time, once a day. But it's not a new problem. So I think that we might be at the point, you know, we see declining growth in search. We see a streetlight problem. I think we're now at a point where we need to think about what's next. We've been in the age of search for such a long time. And I think what comes next is something that we might call discovery. And actually, last night at dinner, you were saying, why do people come to thinking digital? And you said, well, they're learning without a specific purpose in mind. And that's kind of a good way to describe discovery, right? Discovery is finding the things that you didn't know that you wanted to know. And so I want to talk maybe at a little bit of a high level for a while about discovery. And high level actually means vague. So we're now at a, right, you know, we've been thinking about search for a long time. We have a very good mental model of search, but we don't have a very good mental model of discovery. So we have an opportunity now to think about what that should mean. Like, you know, this is Google Trends, right? Search engine, you know, people are less interested in searching about search engines. I don't think people are getting any less meta. I think it means that we have a mental model, but no discovery engine is not trending. So we have a chance to think about, well, if we had to have a discovery engine, what does that mean? And I think a reasonable way to decide what something should be is to first talk about all the things that it shouldn't be, right? You know, cut away everything that's not the sculpture and figure out what that should be. So a couple of things that I think discovery should not be. Discovery should not be duh. Men's shoes are now located in the men's department. All right, I never would have figured that out. Yeah, you know, if you're discovering something, it should be non-obvious. It should be obvious that you wanted to know that, but not obvious when it is told you that way. Also, discovery should not be completely unobvious. So this is a book that won, there's a prize that's given every year to the most weird book title. This is one of the cleaner versions. So if you need to know how to avoid huge ships, there are two editions. Unfortunately, there were some terrible tragedies after the publication of the first edition. That's not true. So Amazon, very helpfully, says that customers who viewed this item also viewed other editions. A book about why milk? First of all, I buy all my milk from Amazon. I don't know about you guys. But so this is non-intuitive. You have to actually know a little bit about what's going on here, in that there are 1,600 reviews of this gallon of milk. It was an internet sensation for a while. People went on Amazon and hilariously reviewed a gallon of milk. It's really worth reading if you have a couple hours. But this is not really discovery. This is right? It shouldn't need to be overly explained the way I just did. And another thing that discovery should not be is it shouldn't be patronizing. It shouldn't be about the discovery engine shouldn't be saying, I know better than you about what you would like at this particular moment, and even if it's not what you like, I'm just gonna be really condescending to you until you agree with me. That's not what a discovery engine should be like. Also, a discovery engine shouldn't be creepy. Don't be creepy. It's one thing to show people what they didn't know that they wanted to know, but it's another thing to show them something that they didn't know that they wanted to know that makes you think that they've been looking in your bedroom window or reading all your email, right? Don't be creepy. Did I mention don't be creepy? It's very important. Because with discovery, you're trying to show people things that they hadn't consciously thought of yet. So it's extremely important not to be creepy. And also, I think it's very important when you're showing people things when you're helping people discover things that you think that they will like, that you should think less about what they are and more about who they are. Because what you are is not who you are. I am a middle-aged mom in California. There are a lot of things that you would think I would be interested in, many of which bore me to tears. So there's a lot of marketing that's done to me based on these demographic facts, which totally ignore the things that I'm actually interested in. I was talking to somebody last night about occasionally I force my teenage son to go with me to geeky workshops that I think would be fun, like building Arduino things that you turn off televisions in public places. And, I'm usually one of the few moms there. So the people trying to reach me based on what I am don't really know about who I am. Now, we've got some examples now about, I think maybe when we talk about discovery, lots of people, the first thing they say is, well, Pandora, right? I love Pandora. I have a exquisitely curated hip-hop station, but with lots of great suggestions based on things that they've thought that I would like, rightly so. But sometimes these things don't expand outward from particular subject areas. So this is for a comedy track. And I don't know about you, but I think hostile anecdotes about handicaps are hilarious. We're playing this because it's hostile. I'm not sure that that translates well. So I think that when you're thinking about discovery, you should think about, will this explanation make sense? And will it make people feel good about what you think they're like? I may not feel very good about enjoying hostile comedy about handicaps. So make sure that doesn't happen. And then I think discovery should not be where you think people should go. It should show up where people are. It should be ambient. You're not in the wrong place. You are where you are. What you want to know about should be focused around where you are at that moment. I think when we talk about building for discovery, what we really want is a kind of augmented serendipity, right? Let's make fun, cool stuff happen without people having to ask for it. It should have that kind of joy in juxtaposition that you sometimes get from a bookshelf. I moved last year, and I like World War to narratives. If you haven't read Story of a Secret State, it's amazing. And I was just putting books on the shelf any old way. I'd packed the books based on size. So I was like, oh, cool, Outwitting the Gestapo. Here's how. You know, I left the books that way just because I thought the juxtaposition was funny. Let's show people unexpected connections. And let's not direct them to where we think they ought to go. Let's let them make the path. If a lot of people are unconsciously or subconsciously or just not explicitly interested in something, we don't have to wait till it's paved before we can let people go there. Just, you know, don't fence it off. And then another thing that I think when we're thinking about discovery, what kind of problems do we want to solve? And when somebody walks into a hardware store and they want a 1/4-inch drill bit, unless they're 1/4-inch drill bit collectors, they're not really interested in having a 1/4-inch drill bit. What they really want is 1/4-inch holes. So when you're solving a problem for someone, think about, do they want the drill bit or do they want the hole? When you're presenting the information to somebody, are you kind of thinking about what they might want? Or are you thinking about what's the end goal? And has everybody had the experience? I've seen this tweet going around where somebody said, yes, I just spent 60 minutes on Netflix deciding what 80-minute movie to watch. Right? You know, you might not want an enormous amount of choice. You might want a good 80-minute movie. I think the best discovery feels like a good present. It feels like someone who knows you well and knows something that you will really love. And the best part is you didn't have to ask for it. You didn't have to go register for it. You didn't have to drop, 3 months worth of hints leading up to your birthday. It just appeared. And the way that we connect people, I think, to the stuff that they really like is by basing it on what things are. So I'm from North Carolina. This is the motto of the state of North Carolina, esse quam videre, which means to be rather than to seem. Base what you do on what things actually are, not on secondary signals, not on how many of your Facebook friends liked it, but what's the actual thing itself. To give you an idea of the opposite point of view, Machiavelli's motto was to seem rather than to be. And if you can really direct people to the right things based on what those things are and who those people are, then when we build our discovery engine, there should be no need for discovery engine optimization, because the system should not be able to be gamed, right? The discovery engine optimization should come from the people building the engine, not from the people who want to have their content or stuff or things discovered. Because if we let people be who they are, then we should be able to connect based on that essence. The kids today, they're saying, you be you, right? If we let everybody be themselves, don't be mad that I'm being me better than you're being you. The discovery engine should find things. I shouldn't have to add a bunch of keywords to make it findable. And I'd like to say that I don't know if anybody else has ever quoted Rumsfeld and Childish Gambino in the same talk, but he's a really good rapper. So I'm a dictionary editor, and I don't know if it's straightforward why somebody who thinks a lot about words all the time got into this. So my company, Reverb, we make WordNet.com. It's the biggest online dictionary by number of words. And a dictionary is really a tool for understanding what things mean. But like all tools, sometimes you can use it for other stuff. And we realized that once you get a dictionary to this scale, any particular word being looked up is very long tail. Over 8 million unique words. And what we realized that we were doing was we were kind of building a scale model of the English language. We were building a map of English. And once you have a map, it's kind of like having GPS for English. So if I know a bunch about a bunch of words over here, I can give you directions to another bunch of words over here that are related in some way. And so we were like, well, that seems like an interesting idea. Maybe we should do that. So we built the Reverb iPad app, and we launched yesterday the Reverb iPhone app, and we call it a discovery reader, which is why I've been thinking so much about discovery, because I don't want to build something that's creepy, patronizing, and rude. It would just be not fun. And so we realized, okay, well, when you're thinking about a document, it's really kind of like a connect the dots picture. And the more words I know in a document and the more I can associate them with other ideas, the more easily I will be able to figure out that that's a turtle and not a stegosaurus. It is really a turtle, I did the dots. And it looks kind of like this, right? So this is where my interests lie, robots and art criticism. And this showed up in my feed. And we try to help you discover other stuff that's related. I would love to go to Brighton's Mini Maker Faire. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. And then, of course, we think about that the total of words in the article add up to the aboutness of it. What's this about? It's about robots. Want to read more about robots? There it is. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to check a little box that said, I'm really interested in robots. I just read about what I was interested in, and it figured it out. Because when somebody is ready, when you're in the right place, we think that when you're ready, the stuff should just appear. When the student is ready, the teacher should appear. When you're ready to read about robots and art criticism, it should appear. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. And if you want to get in touch with me, these are all the ways that you can do it. Thank you so much for your kind attention.